And now we move on to the next, that is Housing for All by 2022. Prime Minister Modi promising Har Parivar Ko Ghar. By 2022, 30 million houses will be built for the economically weaker sections of society. It's going to be more of a public-private partnership. But then the challenge again, how do we create a slum-free India? And it's just not about extending a roof on the head. It is also about sanitation. It is also about extending clean drinking water. It is also about employment. It's also about transport. We have these smart cities coming up. So it's not just limited to the house or a roof on the top. There are more challenges which come along with it. We are going to be having presentations in it and not a panel discussion. So I would like to invite our speakers and a request to all our speakers to kindly, if you have planned it for 10 minutes, if you can take it in say 7 or 8 minutes. The less if you can shorten it, it's going to be help to us, all of us. So inviting Mr. Arun Mohan. He's a renowned senior advocate and writer. He possesses expertise in analyzing different issues. Detailed profile is there on the screen. So thank you, sir, for joining us. Mr. Harinder Dhillon. Can we have the profiles on the screen, please? Can we get it? Okay. Yeah. Mr. Harinder Dhillon, Vice President Sales and Marketing of Raheja Developers, and he heads the sales of residential and commercial projects at the organization, also advertising, brand building, and bank licensing and related activities he assists. Inviting our next speaker, Mr. Sanjay Sachdeva, Executive Director on the board of AIPL. He's responsible for marketing. He brings together over 30 years of professional experience into his service at the Advance India Projects Limited. Our next speaker, Mr. Satish Garg. He's Advisor Strategy at IDI. He has vast experience of project management and team building and leadership, bringing in professional approach with transparency and integrity to the real estate sector. And next speaker, Mr. Sahil Kapoor. He's the Executive Director of Remax India. Been a member of the pioneering team that started or brought in Remax in India. He has been responsible for various roles and responsibility. He ran the region of Delhi NCR as an independent entity, and under his leadership, Remax won 2 international awards, the New Office Gain and the Net Agent Gain. So inviting the views of all, we'll take the presentations as I have, or your views as you express on, and also alongside the solutions we are looking more for Housing for All by 2022. Would like to invite first Mr. Arun Mohan.
As a lawyer practicing for a long time, I realized there are certain rights which each citizen has. Those rights, used in colloquial terms, roti, kapda or makan, that is a constitutional right, a human right. But how much of it turns into reality, or it remains a teasing illusion? That was a question before me when I gave up active practice as a commercial lawyer and turned to social issues and research and writing on justice delivery. We are today 1.3 billion population. Taking 5 members to a household, we need how many houses? Almost 30 crore houses. When I open the Sunday papers, There are 5 pages of colorful ad. Affordable housing. This housing. There is this scheme. But when I look at it from the sky, from the window seat when I'm traveling to some other city to deliver a lecture to the Judicial Academy, I don't see those houses except some around the metros. I see the people. And that is why today, both on the screen and on your table, there is a small paper which I have placed. I'm here more to spur thinking, more to evoke your thoughts rather than just speak. That is my mission. This column represents our population. I, for one, do not believe that housing should be a subsidy as a house. Some support, the real support, yes, will come as a subsidy. But the house will come by the person's own money, own effort, own working. To say housing for all by 2022 is a correct approach. But that does not mean adding, instead of 4, say 6 more pages to the Sunday newspapers of advertisements for affordable housing. I ask the participants here today a short question. What you see, like I see, the advertisements of affordable housing, how much or what percentage of India can afford those houses? May I request some of the participants here to give their view. I would again request one of the participants to give a view. How much of India can afford that houses? 0.1%. No, I would put it about 1.5%. That would be my research. But I'm glad you have responded because that is the take-off time. The remaining 99% or 98%, are they not citizens of India like you and me? I may have been lucky both as an inheritor of and also what I succeeded in my profession as a lawyer to build for myself. But then I said, 99, enough of wakalat. Now I must use my intellect as an intellectual contribution to bring more justice into this country, of which housing was one of them. And you have a small booklet there. Now I am addressing the 98% of India, and you will see here, I divide it into 5 segments. The top 2% I am omitting. And let us have the 5 segments E, D, C, B, A. Unless we address each of these 5 segments, we are not being true to what is the topic of the day, housing for all. That we will be just brushing it under the carpet. Let me begin first with the bottom segment. What is the housing they can dream of? Well, if we are today in 2014 and 8 years of now, we have to give them houses. What is the kind of houses we'll give them? Where will they come from? And we ask the same questions for each of the 4 segments above. Over the years, as a part of my research, I said, look, and I was happy to hear an earlier speaker refer to patchwork. I said, we hear patchwork. All right, this scheme, DDA scheme, any other town, I mean, we are in Delhi, so we talk of DDA. I use the word Local Development Authority, which is to be found in every town. All right, 1,000 houses, 2,000 houses, 10,000 houses. But how many houses do we need? As I said, we are talking of over 25 crore houses. No one builder can build that. No one bank can finance that. But it is the people of this country. And I for one, I also believe we don't even need FDI. It is the people of this country who are supported by a policy of the government and a statutory support. And they will build it for themselves. But then, before that policy can be devised, before that statute and the rule book can be written down, we need a ground level survey of who these people are, what is their capacity, what is their need, and what would be the appropriate solution as far as each sector is concerned. That's why I am taking the 5 sectors by ignoring the top 2%. Friends, I have been trying to search for any material, and now of course the internet has widened our reach, but I was unable to find any material on a research which identifies the needs, the problems, and the solution of this segment. If any of my friends who are participating here have, I would be happy to have the reference. It will only make me a little wiser, and I'll be grateful. We look at a person in each of these segments. What can he afford? What are his problems today, even if he can afford? No research, no recognition. And of course, unless there is identification, there will be no solution. I was very happy to hear in the previous session about the Jan Dhan Yojana. Now, like the Jan Dhan Yojana, we come to Awas Yojana or Housing for All as the topic goes. The first is, let me place it, the high cost. It is my belief, based on research, that the cost of housing can be reduced by almost 50%. And with due deference to some of my friends here who are from the builder community, about 4 years back, there was a sudden slump in the market. So, what was done? You take a 2,000 feet flat, put a wall in between. Of course, the kitchens will have to be 2. Now it's 2 affordable houses, 10 lakhs each. But again, that all remains in the above 2% a segment of the country. So, first is high cost. Second, the bank finance. I'm sure, like me, who get inundated with SMSs and telephone calls, bank loan le lo, all of you also do. But if of the 98% of the population of this country went to a bank, yes, I need a small house, give me a loan. I'm sure, loan apart, even a chair will not be offered by the bank manager. And he is as much a human, that loan seeker, as you and me. There can be a scheme, there can be a bank for him. All right. We assume that we have a bank who is willing to house him. The next question is, he goes to a builder. How many builders in the formal sector? I'm ignoring the informal sector who use more of their muscle than law and fairness. How many builders in the formal sectors are today available for this 98% population of India? There we are. So the bank is missing, the builder is missing. And then we say, all right, we assume the builders are there. How much confidence will this man who persuades his wife कि घर का जेवर बेचो मकान खरीदेंगे, extra time काम करके मकान खरीदेंगे, how much confidence he has in a, I'll just use the word some of the builders. I want to be careful in my speech. But I'm looking at 98%. What is the confidence he carries? So if he doesn't have the confidence, What does he do? He says, no, I'd rather remain without a house and not put that one step forward for what could be my ownership. So there's no confidence in the builder. As next step, we imagine in our thought process, because that is how any development takes place, that there are builders in whom one can put the confidence. Do the builders have confidence in the buyer? Friends, even that is missing today. They will say, पहला 10% मिल जाएगा, बाकी कुछ नहीं मिलेगा, उल्टा चक्कर पड़ेगा. That is the response of several well-meaning builders whom I interviewed over the years in trying to develop this. Lastly, between the builder and the flat buyer, I do not say who is right, who is the wrong. One of them, let us assume, let us give equal respect to both. If there is a dispute, when will the party in the right get justice against the party in the wrong? 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Or one day, as I say on my other lectures, he will simply succumb and root, says justice is not in my life. So these are the basic problems, and now having identified the problems, I would like the participants here, and I'm happy to note at this session today the kind of persons who are participating. What will be the thought process in the mind of each? Where will it take us towards housing? What are the solutions? That is what we are here to figure out. Let me come then straight to a few of the solutions. The first is to make sufficient land available. Today, the cost of land for housing is way above what is the real cost of the land. Why it is so? Well, I could even say that it is holding back. It is holding back sufficient supply so that the prices rise. Second, bank loan. Third, a system for debt recovery. Banks don't give a gift. They give a loan with interest which would at least cover their cost of lending, maybe 1 or 2% above. Unless that is done, there is no reassurance. Then we need, above all, a statute to clean up the title of the land. Otherwise, land title disputes are adding to the cost of what is housing. That statute is missing today. Then we need a statutory body, which I call the Certifying and Performance Guaranteeing Company. On page 42 of the book that I have distributed is a model of a statutory body which I have called the CPGCO. And this, I feel, of course, is for you participants to develop it further, can work as the go-between between the builder and the flat buyer, so each has confidence in the other, and there is also the bank who will say, yes, if I've got a CPGCO certificate, I'm willing to lend. Lend on the flat, lend on the certificate, not lend on the last income tax return. Because if we go by the last 3 years income tax return, we are 97% of the 98% of the population is out. They don't get a bank loan. It has to be house-centric. And house-centric can be only when there is a certificate. Lastly, 2 more things. Again, policy and law. Rent control has to go. Separately, I am doing research work on rent control, and I found some interesting material that if you have to destroy a city, a rent control is much more effective than bombing that city. That is what rent control works. And last, it needs a law to protect the ownership of the person in the housing. He doesn't have to say, I need my lathi to protect my ownership, I need the law of the land to protect. So if these things are identified from the point of view of what are the needs of each of these segments starting from below, I see no difficulty, and with Jan Dhan Yojanas and other Yojanas working alongside, I think I will look and your input further, thoughts development, I can say we can prepone housing for all from 2022 to 2021. And with that, I say Jai Hind and thank you for listening to me.
There must be substitute for the builders when they delay the position. What man can do for that? Not only they write penalty clause, but when you go to them, they do not give penalty clause. They say 2 years and they 5 years. That should be there.
Thank you, sir, for presenting your perspective, also identifying the bottlenecks which are there and the solutions towards it. And now the developers or the builders' point of view we are going to be presenting, so I would like to invite Mr. Harinder Dhillon.
Thank you, ma'am, and a very, very good afternoon to all of you. I am representing a very maligned community, that is the builders and the developers, but there are some very, very practical things that I would like to actually share, that what we actually face when we go and try and implement a lot of social centric activities which is there. DDA has recently implemented a slum rehabilitation scheme. It is very well meaning and a lot of developers are involved in that. However, when you actually go and try and implement it at the ground level, there are so many difficulties and hurdles that are created that some of the dreams that are being shared on this platform, that actually at the practical ground level they just dissipate and you're not able to implement anything at all. We at Raheja Developers took up a project very close to Central Delhi in Katputli Colony. We built a transit camp, spent crores and crores of rupees out of our pocket in building that transit camp over 17 acres of land, provided the best of facilities for one of the most inhuman slums which is there in the entire country, that you can actually call the Dharavi of Delhi. If you actually, I have been inside that slum 2 or 3 times, and it is actually a shock that after 70 years almost of independence, we are still allowing people to live in such inhuman conditions. But when the government is there and is trying to implement a slum rehabilitation program, there are so many vested interests which are uniting and forming a nexus and trying to thwart the development of these kind of schemes. Even after, and that is nothing short of a crime, that you have a developer spending crores and crores and it's all one single-sided, and when you're trying to rehabilitate these people, provide them free housing. Criminal nexus which is actually having criminal activities which are prospering in these slums, in a nexus with the politicians, are not allowing these well-meaning residents to move out. There are about 2,800. I am taking a very micro example because one should understand what is the ground reality. When you actually try and go out and try and help out and do your bit in ensuring housing for all, that is from the lowest of people who can't even afford maybe a 50,000 rupees house in this country. And then when you try and do that, what is the hurdles that you are able to face? Even after 2 years of having got the entire transit camp ready, fully inspected, there are only about 800 families out of 3,500 families that have actually moved there. People are being intimidated, they are being threatened, there are all kind of activities which are happening, and the political class is standing as a mute spectator and many of the times rather encouraging the people, the criminal element to prosper, and the well-meaning residents who deserve a much better life to rather stay in that stagnation itself. So these are some of the things also that we must understand when we are evaluating, and we must come out with a balanced approach in which the political class has a very huge role to play, because ultimately we as developers or any other channelizing agency, even DDA for that matter, may not be able to make that much of a difference till the time you have political interference as well. So that was just one of the examples that I wanted to highlight. large number of states in this country have implemented affordable housing policy, but as our respected Dr. Arun Mohanji has just pointed out, that is applicable only for barely 1 to 1.5% of the population. The reason for that is that when you actually look at the input costs, one of the biggest hurdles is land. Land is either procured directly from the landowners, and for that till now there is no regulation. Land prices are continuing to spiral upwards. On top of that, input costs have gone up substantially. So as builders, you are unable to sell below cost. And even when you look at affordable housing, let us take the example of Gurgaon. It is really wonderful, and it's a step in the right direction, because in a city in which you couldn't actually have apartments less than 1 crore, you're able to give apartments in 10 lakhs, 12 lakhs, 15 lakhs. Maybe that is also not sufficient to cover the entire housing requirement, but that is a step in the right direction. Large number of initiatives have been initiated by the government, and that should be replicated across all states, and maybe right down to the lowest level, that you are able to sell only on carpet area, so that the customer is king. You include all extra charges in that, whether it is EDC, IDC, firefighting, power backup, everything is included. So you are actually giving something which the customer deserves at a price that is very, very competitive, and actually if you look at it, builder margins are wafer thin. But you are able to do a social cause, you are able to get those actual end users instead of investors. That has traditionally been part of the real estate sector. With every new launch, you are able to give to people who deserve the houses much more than any investor is there. So these kind of schemes should be encouraged. But then what is the actual remedy of ensuring that you are able to give houses even to a rickshaw puller? People who do not have even enough amount of money for them to get their daily requirements even met. One has to be far more proactive than that. There is a lot more political will that is required, and what is the implementation at the lowest level. So even when you have schemes like Rajiv Ring Yojana, which was there, of course I think names are being changed now, some of them are already changed. A lot of practical problems in the sense that even the concessional finance availability is a problem in many parts. We tried doing it and incorporating it in the affordable housing schemes, but since the amounts itself were required were very, very low, there were issues. So public-private partnership needs to be encouraged. Land, if you are to involve developers, should be made available at extremely concessional rates. Affordable housing policies as initiated by Government of Haryana should be implemented on much larger scale across the country. And when you actually get into in situ development and slum rehabilitation programs, it should be encouraged rather than there should not be roadblocks which are created for the implementation when someone willfully wants to do good for the society. So that was some of the points that I just wanted to share. I will not take too much of your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Dhillon, and now inviting Mr. Sanjay Sachdeva.
Thank you so much for inviting me here. I don't want to receive this slip, so I will be very short. We are in partnership with the Ambuja Group from Calcutta, and we are doing 3 housing development projects in Punjab. In Punjab, I'll take live examples. In Punjab, there are about 255 townships which have been licensed and people are building, and there is a statutory requirement that you have to build a certain amount as EWS. Not even one single EWS has been delivered because it actually does not make sense for the builder or developer, including us, to have built this and then hand it over to the government. The policies are such that it does not make, even at a loss or even at 0% margin, it does not make any sense to do that. How will this dream ever be fulfilled of housing for all unless we are actually looking at changing some of these very basic things? There is a KPMG research recently which I read about 2 crore houses lying vacant. On the one hand, we are saying that there is requirement for 11 crore, 15 crore, 25 crore houses. On the other hand, we have houses lying vacant. Primarily, there has been no research going on and people are going on building without identifying what sectors really need that housing. and that's why the investor community has flourished, because they keep investing money and prices go up, and people are building in segments which are not requiring that much of housing. Premium housing segments will grow at a certain pace. In order to just point out three critical solutions, and this is again a practical example, I was in touch with 4 microfinance companies that I wanted to lend money. I wanted to encourage them to lend money to our construction workers. We have about 450 construction workers on site, on a particular site. And I said, let me find finance for them to empower them. Like Mr. Krishan Khanna was saying, it's very important to empower people to be able to stand on their own feet. So I said, okay, let me encourage them to raise their own finance just to get 50,000 rupees to buy a house. All the materials in the world that are possible to make a 50,000 rupee or a 1 lakh rupee house are available, but there are 20-25% import duties on it. So the cost of we already spoken about the cost of land. The other big component is taxes and fees. So in a 100 rupee cost of a house, which includes some land cost and some construction cost, 33% cost is fees and taxes alone. Is 33% cost justified just on fees and taxes? And then these microfinance companies that I contacted, they said, we'll lend 50,000 rupees to 1 lakh rupees to your construction workers. The cost of interest was 24 to 36%. So at 24%, what we also heard recently from Mr. Jha, at 24%, these microfinance companies, so-called social enterprises, are they really doing social work, or are they doing social work for profit? So they will, we will never empower people. So neither the construction material cost will go down, nor the land cost will go down, and nor will people build in the segment that is required, and nor will people empower nor will the actual buyers, that 1% or 2% that Dr. Arun Mohan just mentioned, that really need the housing. How will they ever get empowered unless they generate money at a cost which is 3% or 4% interest cost? Most countries of the world that encourage economically weaker section housing are lending money at LIBOR plus 1%. Unless we really bring down that cost of financing to 4% or 5%, whatever is LIBOR plus 1%, we will not be able to empower people to buy those houses. Unless we bring down the duties to 0%, we will not be able to bring down the cost of construction. Unless we get that in every city there is a Noida and a Gurgaon, and there is a peripheral development that's happening around the major metros. Unless land is made available, this will not be fulfilled. Ultimately, we'll just be having conferences after conferences. In 2022, when the time comes, so we are forecasting today 11 crore houses are required. In 2022, that will be 18.5 crores. And that will again shift the target to 2030. So we need to get somebody from here to understand these points that are required and take this to the decision makers and make a change in these 4 or 5 things. Unless that happens, we will just be talking. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And now inviting Mr. Satish Garg, Advisor Strategy of IDI.
Good afternoon to all of you. I think roti, kapda or makan, this is the basic and most important requirement of any citizen of any country. And if after 60 years of independence and so on, we cannot provide to all our citizens roti, kapda and makan, then it is really something which is not acceptable. And when we say roti, kapda and makan, we can think of that a large chunk of our population is not even getting roti or kapda also. So what to talk of? Housing. So are we saying that housing for all is a dream? Certainly not, because we have just seen that we have been talking on Jan Dhan Yojana, and there is a topic on Swachh Bharat, Healthy India. These, I find that all these things, Jan Dhan Yojana, Swachh Bharat, Healthy India, or Housing for All, they are all interlinked. And how they are interlinked is that when I am educated, I am skilled, I am earning something, then I aspire for a house also. So there are two ways always, that either I give house to somebody free of cost or he should earn a house. At IDI Group, we have given a slogan that is Pehle Dukaan Phir Makaan. The idea is, first, let us empower the people to really earn, make them capable of earning some money, and then go for house. Now, at the NAREDCO study and KPMG study, they say that something like 11 crore houses are required by 2022, and the housing shortage, as this was shown by Mr. Arun Mohan, that the 97% of the housing shortage is only for those unfortunate people who are in the poor or poorest or just below the middle class category people. So how to really make it happen that they also get a house? In my opinion, that it was earlier also talked, MP government has also started the public-private participation system, wherein the government can provide land either free of cost or at some concessional rates to the developers with some conditions, and allow them to develop the land. Some portion of that can be retained by the developer for commercial purposes, and rest of the portion can be developed for economically weaker section people. Now, it may be the policy of the government whether they want to give it free of cost or they want to give it on some rental basis or some annuity basis. Okay, you contribute some amount per month and it becomes a house of yours after some time. So, in my opinion, that public-private participation, and it was earlier said that अगर सबका घर होगा तो इस देश के लोगों के द्वारा ही होगा. Nobody is going to come from outside this country to help us to have a house for all. So, public-private participation, encouraging the developers, local bodies may help to address this situation. The second thing is that whenever a industry is coming up, investing sometimes, thousands of crores, and they build very posh colonies for them. And to run that industry, you need the contract labor. Contract labor means those whose jobs are not secured, and they get hardly sometimes 1/10 of the lowest paid employee of that company. The maids, sabji wala, all those people are required to serve this to effectively run their business. But the industry never thinks about them. So there can be, I suggest that there should be some statute that while you spend 1 lakh crore to build a small, to build an industry, you will spend at least 1,000 crore towards the houses for economically weaker section also. This kind of the approach certainly will not add too much to the project cost. The project will not become unviable because of that expenditure. Simultaneously, they will get a quality service. And in the end, I will say that we should empower our people, as PM has really started from that Jan Dhan Yojana, educating all, skilled India, digital India, and when it comes, naturally, everybody will have the power to buy also, and simultaneously, we as a society must give the houses to the economically weaker sections by developing them by the public-private system, or by having on statute that the industries who come, they should provide some kind of the economically weaker section houses to the people. That may solve the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And may I now request Mr. Sahil Kapoor. He's the Executive Director, Remax India.
Probably, I guess I'm the only one between you and lunch, so I'll not take much of your time. So when we talk about housing for all, we are not talking about people like probably you and me. It's altogether a different breed of people that we are talking about. We are talking about people who are probably serving you tea and coffee right here. Probably people who help you park your car outside, and probably people who are sitting right outside the gate helping you park your vehicles and the guards over there. These are the kind of people that we are talking about. Now, also, I think there are various different bodies like United Nations and the government and the developers. They talk about a different number when they talk about shortage. Now, United Nations says that India has the largest number of poor in the world, which I think they're right. The developers lobby says that probably there's a shortage of almost 4 crore houses across the country, and probably the government body says that it's somewhere close to 2 crores. But the bottom line is that we all know that there is shortage of the houses, and it is, trust me, not for people like you and me. It is for an altogether different sect of society, which we called EWS, which we called LIG. So when we think, when we make plans, when we decide anything, we have to keep them in mind. Now, the biggest problem that I foresee when we talk about housing for all by 2022 is the coordination between our central and state governments. Now I belong to Punjab. My hometown is Amritsar. I mean, if I leave these last 6 to 8 months, there has always been a mismatch in the government in the state and the center. I've seen projects coming in and they are stopped the moment the government changes. There's a different government at the center, there's a different government at the state, and there's always a mismatch. They do not ever come on the same page. This is the biggest problem that we foresee. And then there are urban local bodies, then there are private institutions which come into picture. So first and foremost, if this has to happen, I think the government at the center, the state governments, the urban local bodies, and the private developers, they all have to be probably in the sync first. Probably there has to be some kind of an organization, some kind of an agency, some body, some nodal agency, which has to be made, which just regulates the work that each and every agency, each and every, I would say, stakeholder in this whole project is doing. Now, I heard Mr. Dhillon and my friend from AIPO when they spoke about there's not much in the game for the affordable housing and how can they pitch in. There are a lot of hurdles, and trust me, they're very much right. Even when I talk about any developer per se, I mean, you guys know it. Today in India, land aggregation, land acquisition, it is one of the biggest challenge. We all have witnessed what has happened in Noida. A developer like Amrapali or Supertech or anybody, I don't want to name anybody, but even after paying proper amounts, having all the approvals, even after constructing 90% of their products, they've all gone into vain because there were not proper structures available, there were not proper bodies available, and there was no sync in between. When a developer, he acquires the land, the prices are high, right? There are probably 50 odd approvals. I'm not sure about the number, Mr. Dhillon would know the right number. There are near about 50 odd approvals that he needs to take. We are talking about a single window clearance, and we have been talking and talking since last so many years. It's not come into place. So for a developer to look at affordable housing, we have to look at what he's actually facing. The cost of finance that he pays, it's too large. We don't have a long-term finance available when I talk about housing in the sector. When he buys the land until he actually starts the construction, the time period is between 24 to 36 months. What do you think he's doing with all that money that he has already invested in the land and all that interest that he's already paying? Now the costs keep adding and adding and adding, and ultimately he's not able to actually even look at affordable housing as an option. That's the reason all the products that we see, they're majorly either in ultra luxury, luxury or mid segment. We have to attract the developers to make affordable housing, and there has to be a lot of benefits which have to be given to them in order to do that. Now the next thing is, as a lot of my friends over here said, roti, kapda or makan. In India, housing as a sector, we still don't have it as an infrastructure status given to it. Now once it's been given an infrastructure status, there'll be tax benefits and there'll be a lot of other benefits which will go down to the line. Now when that benefit comes in, obviously the cost of the product, when the taxes are reduced, when the burden of land acquisition is reduced, ultimately the product would go to the end consumer at a cheaper price. Now I was just reading a couple of articles, and one of the, I think, private firms, they said that 90% of the people who even stay in metros, they earn less than 25,000 a month, which is less than 2 lakhs per annum. Now a person earning 2 lakhs per annum, can he really afford a home? I don't think so. How many of you have really heard about houses which are 10 lakhs and below? The company that I belong to, we work into real estate brokerage sector, and there's a joke that we used to talk to people who wanted to invest in Gurgaon. I said, if your budget is less than 1 CR, trust me, there's no point spending 42 rupees of the toll plaza and coming and going back. There's nothing less than 1 CR in Gurgaon. Yeah, there are projects coming in, but in what numbers? We are talking about 95% of the entire shortage in EWS and LIG. 95% of 20 crore, you can make the numbers. Do we have those kind of houses, or do we have the plan of those kind of houses? The answer is right now, no. We talk about private developers coming in. There has to be strong incentive for them to come into the sector. FDI, probably I don't see FDI coming into this sector at all, because it is not very much promising. Even when you make an ultra luxury product, you still have a lot on stake. But when you make an affordable housing product, probably you have everything on stake. The other couple of points which I want to probably highlight is, I don't even think we have understood the problems at the bottom of the pyramid. When we talk about people who we are targeting, when we talk about housing for all, a lot of them, as I think Mr. Jain and Mr. Mohan said, they don't even have bank accounts. They don't even have access to basic necessities of life. They don't even have income proofs. They don't even have valid IDs. How are they going to pay the first down payment and even the EMI going further? Do we have financing schemes available for all these people who are our end consumers? Right now the answer is no. Jan Dhan Yojana, I think, probably is one of the biggest steps towards it, because probably he'll have at least a bank account will be given to everybody. So that's one thing that we have to look at. The other thing is the product even reaching out to the right set of people that we are targeting? Right now the answer is no. I'm sure probably 50% of the audience sitting in the room today, or maybe 40%, would have applied in DDA, right? Now when we talk about DDA, this is the first time probably they came with a 5-year lock-in, which is a very good move, because if we have to target the right kind of person who has to actually live in, who needs that place, we need to make norms so that it actually reaches them. It doesn't go into the hands of investors who want to invest in properties left, right and center. Even if we make the product and it goes into the wrong hands, the whole policy, the whole project goes into vain. So ultimately, what we need to understand is the coordination at all levels. We need to first of all define what an affordable housing also is. Now, our esteemed organization RBI probably says that 65 lakhs or 50 lakhs is something which is called an affordable housing. This is not. It is not affordable to the normal public. Affordable housing has to be something which is 10 lakhs or 15 lakhs in that particular segment, 1 BHKs, which the developers don't even make. I've been already given one notification, so I won't take much of your time. So guys, all the best. Thank you so much for this forum, and take care.
Thank you to all our speakers, and real apologies that we had to rush through your presentations and your talk. But thanks to each one of you for bringing about some solutions. Like you mentioned about reforms in land acquisition, regulations need to be bringing in to protect the customer's interest. Banks need to be ready to extend loans and at a lower interest. Political will was pointed out, and I think for the developers that came out from the developers, political will is required towards it. No delays, which is something which actually brings in more cost for the developers. So no delays, more of laws, more of transparency which needs to be extended, and PPP is going to be one way which needs to be encouraged. So thank you to all of you, and I would like to request Mr. Batra to kindly present our thank you gesture, the mementos to our speakers. I think, okay, we'll take one question, and probably during the lunch break we can take offhand. Yeah, yes, sir.
The focus has been on urban housing, whereas 70% of the Indian population lives in the rural areas. So what are we talking about? Only urban housing. What about the rural areas?
A very valid question, because housing is required wherever you may be. In that booklet that I have circulated, I have addressed this question, and the ideal is that unless we go to the villages and make housing schemes which are affordable to those who are living there, working in the metros, and can be financed from here there. It has to be across the whole segment, from rich to from the non-rich to the poorest of the poor, and from the metro all through the villages. Then only the housing will be, it's housing for all we are talking. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Batra, please, may I request you to present the memento to Mr. Arun Mohan. Thank you, sir. Thanking Mr. Dhillon. Thanking Mr. Sanjay Sachdeva. Our thanks to Mr. Satish Garg. And thanking Mr. Sahil Kapoor. Thank you to all of you also, ladies and gentlemen.